Hi, everyone. This is Amy Major with Spirit Rescue Talk. I have Rikesh here, who is my guest today. He was actually in a few of my classes about a year or so ago, and he had such amazing talent that I really wanted to have him on the show and discuss his particular interest in rescue mediumship, his work, his history, and tell you a little bit about where he's going. So I just want to say a big hello to hi, Rick. How you doing?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Amy. It's nice to see you. I'm honored and humbled to be here with you today.
I got to add you on.
Yeah.
We had a long history and just a lot of situations and stories and things that have really developed over the last few years. But can you tell us a little bit about where you've come from, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So I'm actually based in Vancouver, Canada, and my spiritual journey really took off about 3 to 4 years ago, just right before COVID started. It started off as mental health. I was dealing with severe anxiety and depression. And it got to a point where I was self-sabotaging my work, my career, my relationships. And it just got really, really bad. So I ended up actually switching careers or switching a job, thinking that that would help. And it only took me further down that rabbit hole. And within a couple of weeks, I found myself at a point where I was in bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I was completely lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. And it just that anxiety and depression just accelerated to a point where I had to get on medication, take counseling, and I found that even though I was on all of those things from a medical standpoint, it still didn't really help. There was something else going on, I realized. And it took me back to a story from when I was a teenager. When I was 18 years old, I was dating this girl, and what happened was one day she was basically taken over by something. She was literally possessed right in front of me, and it happened on more than one occasion. And she was Muslim, and I'm Hindu, and her parents called in their priest, called a Mulbi, and he had claimed that he exorcised her. So after that point, we had to follow some strict rules. She had to be home at certain times. She couldn't be out at dark, to avoid another attachment of some sort. But she was at a point where she was threatening to hurt herself. She was threatening to hurt me. So I stuck around because I was dating her for a few years. So of course I had a place in my heart for her. I wanted to see her through this, the struggle. And so all of this led me back to what was happening to me all these years later, led me back to the story back then. And I realized that something from her at that point was still with me. Something fragmented, or something attached to me. I thought maybe that the Mulbi didn't actually get rid of this thing. Maybe a part of it still found its way to me.
Right.
And it lay dormant inside of me for all these years, rooting itself deeper and deeper into my energy. And then after I got married in 2010, that's when all of a sudden I would feel this ball of anxiety inside of me all day, every day. It would just be there, and I would fight it off every single day. And I was just leading my life, a newly married person, new career, trying to find my way into a new home, just living life. And it just got worse and worse. And I even had that conversation with my wife, saying that anxiety was always there. I was always on edge, and I didn't know what to do. So I turned to marijuana, I turned to alcohol, and those types of things. Again, were temporary solutions, but all it did was suppress things further. All it did was feed whatever this energy was that was with me. And I was told back then by the Mulby and my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend's parents, that it was a demon of some sort that was with her. So, because it literally took her whole body over and it was controlling what she was doing, all of her actions. And I thought that when I was an 18-year-old kid, I was terrified. And all these things started to happen in my home where there was this basically a pentagram showing up on my television every single day in dust. I would be in my room and I'd come home and there's this pentagram, this pentacle there. And I'm like, and it was started happening after this exorcism of whatever happened that day. So I was like, I couldn't sleep in my room. My parents were wondering what was happening. I didn't want to talk with them about it. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I talked to my brother about it, but he thought I was crazy. So I just suppressed it for all those years.
Wow.
Eventually, my parents picked up on it, that there's something was not right. So I told them about the TV, and they saw it every day for 2 weeks. My mom would clean it and it would come back again. It would every single day for 2 weeks. So they actually switched TVs out. They switched my TV with their TV. And then all of a sudden it just went away. It was the strangest thing. So again, all those years ago, I just told myself, I'm never going to talk about this again. I'm just going to pretend that it can never happen. Ended up breaking up with the girl and then just moved on with my life. And then fast forwarding, after I got married, as I was talking about the anxiety and just feeling on edge. Once we moved into our own place, shortly after we had our first child, and after my first was born, that's when it really accelerated. Something happened inside of me. Something changed. It opened me up, I guess, to being a father, and opening up to that just opened me up to so much more energetically. And I would start having more attacks with anxiety, and I would be taking those attacks out on the people that were closest to me. My wife was, the biggest culprit of these attacks. My mom, my dad, my brother. I felt like something inside of me was literally trying to get a rise out of them. It was literally trying to force them into feeling the way I was. I was trying to bring them to the point that I was feeling. All those deep wounds and traumas that I was dealing with was surfacing, and whatever this energy was knew everything. It knew everything about me. It knew everything. It had control of my emotions. It had control of my mind. I felt like there was a second voice inside my head that I was trying to literally kind of bang out at times when I was having anxiety attacks.
Yep.
This all eventually led me to, it was actually a Diwali of 2020. It was in October. And my dad started to finally come to terms with what was happening. And he started to help me find a guru, a pandit of some sort that could help with removal of entities. So they did confirm that there was something with me, and that it had been with me for a very long time, and that it was malevolent, and it was some sort of a lower dimensional entity. And it was rooted pretty much into my whole system, and that it needed to be removed. So they decided to come to my house one morning, early morning at 5 a.m. It was a couple days before Diwali, and they did this ceremony at my house. And he asked me to tell him when I feel it, when I feel the presence of it. And usually when I feel the presence, I start to sweat, I start to get anxious. So as soon as I start to feel that, in that moment, we started to hear this cry upstairs in my master bedroom. And it was this extremely loud cry and something that I've never heard before. So we all went up and the Guru Ji went in and we all sat there and we did more prayers. And apparently he said that he got a hold of it and that he was able to remove it. But the story doesn't quite end there with this entity, because I did come across it again a few weeks later. So I was so fascinated by what happened, and I also realized that I needed to learn how to protect myself, and I needed to learn how to protect my family. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't going to rely on pandits and gurus to do that for me. I needed to learn how to do it on my own. And eventually I started to research online, and I came across Amy's books, rescue books. And I read those 2 books. And again, it just fed my fascination with it. And something inside of me was just pulling me. So I decided to set up a session with Amy. And you helped me through some other attachments that were there, attachments that weren't dangerous by any means, but were affecting me by any means. So you were able to help me remove those, and you also taught me how to clear my energy, clear my chakras, and how to do the white light meditations, and how to take the salt baths, and all those little things that help with keeping your energy clear. Right. And as I dive deeper into that world, I started to get visions. Like one of my, I actually had another anxiety attack. Unfortunately, it was on my son's birthday, and there was a bunch of people over, and I had it out with my brother in front of everybody, and I asked everybody to leave. And in the middle of that anxiety attack, I just laid down and I just started to breathe, and I started to try and calm myself. And for the first time, I got into this meditative state, and without even knowing that I was there. And I had this vision. Of this man wearing a crown, and he had bluish skin, and he was holding something in his hand, and he was wearing saffron clothing. And my intuition was telling me, oh my God, that's Lord Krishna. But my mind was telling me otherwise. My mind was like, no way, that's not him. There's no way that you can connect with things like that. They don't exist, because I wasn't really religious. I was, after what happened when I was 18, I just gave up on religion, and I gave up on spirituality. I said, it's not real. It doesn't exist. It's just all fake. That's what I was. I was basically an atheist for a little while there. But this experience was telling me otherwise, because I knew what I saw, and everything inside of me other than my soul was telling me that I'm crazy, just like the outside world was telling me. But so I started to dive a little bit deeper into meditation, and that's when I decided to take your class, and that opened my energy up quite a bit more, and opened me up to a lot that I didn't realize about myself. A lot of hidden skills and talents and gifts and abilities. And as all this was happening, all of a sudden the story comes to light about my ancestors. It was a story about my great-grandfather, and him and his brother were going through the exact same thing I was going through. Of course, in the 1920s, they didn't know what it was, anxiety and depression. But he was going through anxiety and depression. He couldn't go to work anymore. He stopped working. They were in a financial struggle. They had 4 children. And my great-grandmother was working 2 jobs just to try and support. And one day he said, I found a job. I found work. I'm going to go down north for 3 days. I'll be back in about 3-4 days. And a month went by, 2 months went by, 3 months went by, and he still wasn't back. And nobody knew where he was or what he was up to. and my poor great grandmother was trying to support her 4 children, run the house, and she was starting to get to a point where she was reaching a breaking point herself. She couldn't take it anymore, so she got a couple of other family members to go find him. And when they did find him, he was at an ashram, and he was training with a guru for the last 6 months. And he realized all these abilities himself. He had psychic abilities. He was able to foresee the future. He was able to heal, and all these things. And when they asked him to come back, he said no. He said, I have more work to do here, and I can't go back to the family. But they spoke with the guru, and they convinced the Guruji that if he doesn't go back, it's going to cause more damage back home. So the Guruji released him from the ashram and said, you need to get back to your family. And he was a little bit sad at first, but he did get to the point where he started to find his place there. He started to do readings for people, and he would actually have lineups out of his place for people who wanted to get readings from him, because he was really well known in the community. And he was also a master of alchemy. He was able to transmute negative energy into positive energy, and vice versa. And there was even stories out there that he was able to transmute metals into gold. And it was, it's a crazy story, but once you start to dive deeper into this world, and nothing's crazy.
No.
So he did pass away at a young age. So he only got so far, and here I am in this life. And it seems that the same karmic cycle is repeating itself for me to awaken and for me to come to these realizations. And now that I've reached a certain point, I've reached that point that he reached, realizing your psychic abilities, realizing your energy healing abilities, and working with them. And now I've come to a point where my ascended masters are wanting me to go further down that road. So it all started the first time I realized, like when I was working with you, Amy, I did have a couple of entities come to me that you're aware of. There was a little girl who came to me in my unconscious state. I was sleeping, I was dreaming, and it was an extremely vivid dream. And this, I heard something in my daughter's bedroom. So in this vision, I went to my daughter's room, and there was this poor little girl sitting there, and she had pigtails, and she was battered and bruised, and she was just sitting there on the bed, and she was looking at me, and she was like, help me. So as I walked into the room, something was holding me back. Something was preventing me from getting to her. And I felt like I was being choked. Something was wrapped around me and just pulling me back. And at that point, I woke up in a panic. My heart was racing. I felt like I had a sweat, and I didn't know what to do. And I reached out to Amy right away in a panic, saying, oh my God, help me. What am I supposed to do? Because I was so confused and just distraught at what I saw, and a little bit frightened by it, to be frank, at that point. So Amy helped me realize that there was that it was sort of a hostage situation where there was a lower level entity that was holding on to this poor little girl. So Amy guided me to get in there, to try and connect with her, and to try and connect with this other entity. And he was basically saying no. I said, you have to release her from this hold that you have on her. And he was, for a while, he was just saying no. But I had to counsel him too, because this obviously is a very damaged soul, and it had been through a lot of pain and suffering as well. And it took a while. It took me a couple of times to get in there, but I was able to eventually have him let go of her. And the only thing that I realized got us to that point was compassion.
Mhm.
I was trying to have him reach a point of compassion, and I didn't think it was possible, but I was able to bring this entity to a point where it saw the type of pain that it was causing others, and from that perspective, he let her go. And I called in her family and spirit, and I called in her angels and her guides, and they did guide her into the light. And that was the first time I had ever done anything like that, a hostage type situation. Before that, I had, after I dealt with the Guruji, a few weeks after, I went to go see a lady that helped me get into a hypnotized state, basically a meditative state.
Mhm.
She was an expert in hypnosis. So she took me to this place, this dark place, in my meditative state. And the first time ever I saw Hanuman. Hanuman was there with me. He's the monkey god. He's always been there with me. I've always had him actually on my chain that I wear my whole life. And I never realized that he was always with me, always protecting me, always watching over me. And there he was with me. And all of a sudden I saw this entity that was with me. And he was extremely mad at me, because he was telling me, why did you bring this guru? And I told him, because you were manipulating me. You were trying to get me to commit suicide. You were telling me to hurt my wife, my children. And I was trying to fight against those thoughts that you were creating. You were destroying my life. So I brought that Guruji in because he was the only one that I found that was able to help me with this and remove you from me. And he said that, he goes, do you even know what the guru did with me? And I didn't.
Mhm.
I didn't know, because I didn't know anything about any of this. All I wanted was for this entity to be gone.
Right.
And this guru himself was also malevolent. He didn't have necessarily good intentions. He was doing this for profit, and he was trying to manipulate and swindle more money out of us. So what he was doing was, and there's stories about this all over the world. These real gurus from ashrams in India come to countries like ours and find people that are in difficult situations.
Mhm.
They remove the entities, they hold the entities, don't know what they do with them, but they also try and ask for more money. They told me, you have 4 more entities with you, and they're worse than the ones that I removed.
Mhm.
And I want you to pay $140,000 or some odd dollars to remove it. And
Oh,
at that
shit.
point, yeah, exactly. So I told him, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to deal with this on my own.
Mhm.
So what he did with this entity was beyond my knowledge, but according to this entity, it was not good. And in this vision, I saw the Guruji there as well. And he had these cords that were tied to this entity. And the entity was somehow just under his control, was under his hold. So Hanuman wanted to show me all of this. And I was in tears when I saw this, because, I felt so much pain for this entity. And I felt like it was my fault that this happened to it. And Hanuman helped me disconnect those cords with the Guruji. And all of a sudden, this big portal of light came, and I asked the entity to to go into the light, and the entity went into the light and was gone. And that was my first real experience with a portal opening, and seeing an entity go into the light. Um, and then of course the little girl was the second time that I had done something like that. And then it led me to about 6 months later. I don't know if I was in your class at this time, but my aunt was really sick. She was fighting cancer for quite a while, and she was in the hospital for a couple of months last year, and she passed away on the 19th of December. And my cousins had told me to come to the hospital to be with them. So this whole time I'm on the way to the hospital, and my wife and I are halfway there, and we turn around because we were like, something inside of me was like, something inside of me knew that something was going to happen at the hospital, and the fear inside of me turned me around. So I turned around, and my brother and my dad called me, and they're like, where the hell are you? You need to be here right now. So I went back to the hospital, and they had already pulled the plug. They were just basically waiting for her to pass. And it could have happened because they did it. It could have been 24-hour. There could have been a 24-hour period where she could have just passed. They said it could happen any minute, any hour. But for some reason, she was just holding on. She was holding on. And the moment I get there, I'm in the room, and all of a sudden, everybody's there. My parents are there. My mom's brother, and his kids, my aunt's kids, and a few others. And everything in the room just started to go blurry in my vision. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know what's happening. But I was almost forced into this situation where everything started to go blurry. So I just closed my eyes, and my wife was holding my hand, and she saw something was happening. So she just kind of let me be. And I was sort of in the back of the room, and nobody noticed what was going on, because obviously everybody was a little bit preoccupied with what was happening in the room.
Right.
And I've never had this happen before, but just within a second, all of my chakras just opened up in that vision. And it almost looked like every single chakra was like this universe, like a red universe, and just all the different colors of the chakras. And I've never been able to open up like that instantly. And then I saw my grandmother sitting there with her, who had passed a couple of years prior. She was sitting there holding her hand. I saw a couple of others that I didn't recognize, but they were clearly angels and guides. And I saw her. It looked like there was this like black web that was just holding on to her soul. It was like her soul was trying to release, but this web just kept pulling her back in, It almost felt like she was ready to go. Her soul was ready to go. Her guides and angels were there ready to guide her into the light. But her emotions and her body and her mind was not ready to let go. It was holding on to all those connections that were in the room. And at this point, I didn't really know what was happening, but I was just going with it. And I was going to try and help in any way I could. And Hanuman was there, and he was with this, holding his scepter. And he said, you pull her out of this web, and I'm going to start breaking the webs with my scepter. So he started to break all these webs. And as he was breaking her, what seemed like this prison, I was able to get her out of there. I was able to pass her on to her guides and angels. And they took her through this portal of light right above us. And the most ironic thing was the ceiling was blue skies and clouds, like this heavenly looking sky, right?
Of course.
In this room. And so she was going through this portal, and I just kept telling her, just keep going. And after a minute or two of this, I saw this, like, just this blinding bright light. And then Hanuman said to me, she's there, she made it. And I opened my eyes, and literally in that second, the nurse came in and said, she just passed. It happened all at once.
Yep.
And I had never done it. I've never thought that I was capable of something like that. I never thought that that was part of my journey. But you get taken in so many different directions.
Right.
And I guess Lord Krishna has always told me, when you're ready, you're ready.
Yep.
We're not going to do anything. We're not going to take you somewhere that you can't handle. But when we think that you're ready, we're going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they did for me that day. They took me there. I'm so grateful, because I was able to help my aunt, because if I hadn't been there, then maybe her soul would have fragmented. Maybe a part of her would have still been here, stuck in the earth plane, earthbound, and lost. So I was so grateful that I was able to help her transition fully over to the other side. And I haven't really told many people that story. Not many people in my family know. It's just my wife, of course, and my parents. But outside of that, nobody else knows about this.
Well, I think it's a story that you need to tell.
I know, yeah.
People know that this type of situation can exist, and the beautiful things that we can do is one soul to another soul.
Yeah.
But I know you talked about also working with groups of
yes
souls.
And that's something that developed over the past 6 months or so. So for starting January 2022, after my birthday, I was born on January 8th. And all of a sudden I would see 818 every day on the clock, 8:18 in the morning, at night, on license plates, everywhere, 818 every day. And I'm like, what the hell is this 818? I don't know what it means. I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but I'll figure it out. So I realized that almost actually towards the end of July, leading into August, I realized, oh my God, I know now. It's Lord Krishna's birthday on August 18th. He wants me to connect with him on August 18th. So I do see him in my meditations. I have gone to his, in a meditative state, I've astral traveled to Dwarka, I've astral traveled to his palace, and I've seen him, but he's never really told me much. He's always there with me and he's spending time with me, but he never really says much. He just keeps telling me that I'm on the right path, keep being patient, keep staying calm. I'm like, this whole time, all you guys have been telling me for 2 years is to stay calm and patient. I'm starting to lose my patience because of this, right?
All too well, yeah. Patience.
Exactly. But now I realize that those were the two most important things that brought me to this point. And they kept showing me synchronicities. They kept telling me in this world, through numbers and through different scenarios and situations, that I'm on the right path. You're on the right path. Keep learning, keep learning. And then eventually, about 6 months ago, they said, okay, no more learning. It's time to start taking action. It's time to start putting yourself out there. And so I connected with him on his birthday, and I just found out about a week prior that we just booked a trip to Fiji. My dad's like, you know what? I want you guys to see my hometown. I haven't been back over 50 years. And we have deep roots there. And I'm taking everybody. Wow. I'm paying for everybody. I'm taking the whole family, right? Kids, my brother's family, all of us. And I said, wow, I can't say no to that.
You can't.
So we went in September, but Lord Krishna, I go to him and he says to me, oh, so you're going to Fiji? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Fiji. And all of a sudden my higher self comes in to this picture. And my higher self is this Brahmin. And I never really knew his name. I never really knew much about him other than that he was my higher self and that he was a Brahmin and he was a Pandit way back when. And he comes in and he gives Lord Krishna a big hug. And I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, so you guys know each other? And he's like, oh yeah, we're old friends. So I started to look into it, and I found out that when Lord Krishna was a child, he went to school, and his best friend was this person named Sudama. And when I looked up Sudama, it was exactly the person that is my higher self. And he was a pandit, and he was not very well off. And all these years later, he went to go see Lord Krishna, and he went there to purposely say, his intention was to say, help me get riches, help me get this, help me get that, help me because I'm poor and I can't put food on the table for my children and my family. But he left. He had so much fun with Lord Krishna and that connection that he had with him that he left without asking for any of it. And halfway home, he realizes, oh boy, my wife's gonna kill me. I didn't ask for any of this stuff.
Uh-oh.
But when he gets home, he had this massive house. His wife was wearing this beautiful clothing, and they had all this food on the table. And Lord Krishna had blessed him with this because he knew the whole time that this is what he was coming for, but he didn't ask for it.
Right.
And then he knew that he was going to go back, and he was still going to help people. He was still going to do what he was going to do without any of the riches, without any of the fame. And for that reason, Lord Krishna gave it to him and said, here you go, but keep doing what you're doing. And he did. He helped his community. He spent his life doing so. And here we are in this vision, and they're together. And I realize all these things that they've been hiding from me for so long.
Wow.
And they sat me down and they said, so do you know why you're going to Fiji? I was like, because my parents are from there, because I have deep roots there. And they're like, yeah, but you're also going because Fiji is a very high vibrational spot in the Pacific Islands. And I said, okay, I'm not really sure what that means, but okay, I'm with you, right? Let's see where this goes. And he said, I need you. He goes, for the last year and a half, all these souls that you've helped transition, all of those hostage situations that you've dealt with, all those things that you've done, it was training. We wanted to train you to see if you were ready to move further into your mission. And I asked, what is that mission? And he said, I need you to go to the ocean water in Fiji. I need you to go right before sunrise. And I need you to help souls transition on a mass scale. I want you to open a portal larger than you've ever opened before. I want you to suspend yourself into the air. I want you to fill yourself with golden light so that you are illuminating in the sky, so that all these souls that can't find their way can find their way into the light. You are going to be that beacon of light that is going to take them. I want you to call on all of the angels and guides of the land. I want you to ask for permission from the ancestors of the land. I want you to call on elementals, basically all hands on deck.
Right.
I want you to call everybody. So he goes, once you get there, you'll have a better idea of who you need to call upon. And in Fiji, the energy that I felt heavily was of course energy from our gods, our deities, and Christ energy was heavy influence there as well. So I knew the moment I stepped into Fiji, I knew that those are the energies that I'd have to work with.
Right.
So it worked out that the day that we were staying right in front of the water on a resort, right in front of the water in Denaro Island, was on September 22nd, 2022. Just worked out like that.
Gotta love the numbers.
Yeah. So obviously I knew that was the day that I needed to do it. So I woke up early that day. I did it. And it almost seemed like it happened so effortlessly. I was there by myself, and it was about 5 a.m, and I completed it around somewhere around 6:30. The sun had already risen, and I felt so good. And I went back to my room, and my wife was asking me how it went, and I told her it went great. And I checked my phone, and I got my email from you, Amy, about having this call with you. I got it literally moments after I completed my mission in Fiji.
Wow.
Yeah, and I could swear I saw so many souls go into the light, and there were earthbounds, there were lost souls, there were fragmented souls, there were lower dimensional entities that wanted to move on. There was so much density. So after I finished it, they told me to do something similar in New Zealand, but it didn't necessarily have to be by the water. It didn't necessarily have to be in a specific spot, but just do it while you're there. It will also help release some energy. So I was doing this not really understanding the reasoning behind it. I did understand that I needed to help all these souls transition, but I didn't understand the depth of the story and the depth of the reasoning. And as I started to meditate more on it, I started to open up to more of the story. And it was because there's so much density that is holding down our collective. And all of these souls, all these lost souls, all these earthbounds, all these lower vibrational, lower dimensional entities, they're all a part of it. They're holding down our collective. They're holding down Mother Earth's collective energy. Yep. And we can't rise. We just, as a collective, we just, as much as many of us awaken, if we don't help these entities on the other side of the veil move on, it's still going to just keep, that veil is going to be there. It's going to keep holding us down. And we won't be able to transition beyond the fourth dimension, because that's where the veil is. It's just holding us in this third dimensional space. So they said, good job. And that was just scratching the surface. And Lord Krishna said, Lord Shiva was there, Lord Vishnu. I worked with Ganesh a little bit here and there as well. And they all said, this is just the beginning. We did this. We wanted you to go to Fiji to do this so you can learn what it is that you needed to do and how you needed to do it. And I made mistakes. I forgot to actually ask for the permission from the ancestors of the land. It was a silly mistake, but you know, you learn from your mistakes. And it was the first time I did it. And I did apologize to those ancestors, and I did ask for forgiveness, and they were okay. They were like, no, we're happy that you did the work, but next time ask. I said, okay, next time I'll ask. And they told me, we need you to do this all over the world. We need you to do this. There's a place close to you that you need to do this. You need to go to Mount Shasta. You need to go to Northern California. It's not far from you. So make the time, go do this. And as I journeyed to Agartha, I learned that Mount Shasta is literally right above Telos. And Telos is where all of the dragons are. And I was trying to connect to my dragon energy recently. And all of a sudden, I opened myself up to this story as well. And I was like, wow, like this is amazing, right? Like to travel to Middle Earth and to see this ninth dimensional land. It was amazing. And all these ascended masters reside there, and these dragons and these magical creatures are all there. And it was such an amazing place to see. And when I went there, it seemed like everybody knew me. Like they were looking at me and they were staring at me. And I'm like, how do all of you people know me? I have yet to figure that out, but I'm sure that there's a story behind it.
You'll figure that out.
I'll figure it out eventually. So they told me, you need to go to Mount Shasta, you need to go to Mexico, you need to go to Brazil, you need to go to Machu Picchu, you need to go to the pyramids in Egypt, you need to go to India, you need to go to China. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me to basically go everywhere in the world, right? And I asked, so how is it that I'm going to pay for all of this? And they said that will come. You don't worry about how you'll get there. or when you'll get there. This is a life mission. It's not something that's going to happen all at once. And when the resources are available, when the resources come to you, when the universe works its magic,
Right.
then you'll be able to do it. And the universe knows your mission. The universe is on your side. Just keep faith, stay present, keep working on the little things, and it will all build up. It'll all get to that point. But don't keep focusing on that result. You know that that's your goal, but just keep focusing on what you need to do on an everyday basis. So that's kind of the story behind my mission, my overall mission.
Transformation, huh?
Huge, yeah.
I saw it in you the first time I met you.
Oh, I knew that you knew something that you weren't sharing with me, and
I couldn't.
I know you couldn't, as much as even you wanted to. And something similar like that happened with me recently, where I couldn't share something with my wife, right? Because Lord Krishna told me, no, she has to figure it out on her own. She's capable of all of this. All that you're doing is a big part of why you guys are together. It's a big part of, like, you're not going on these missions alone. She's going to journey with you, and she's going to be there with you, and it's going to make it that much more potent, that much more powerful.
Right.
And he goes, but there's stuff within her energy that's holding her back. And I was like, well, let me remove it. And he's like, you can't. Not until she's ready. So recently, after months, after a couple of months now, recently she started to hit a breaking point herself. And things started to get pretty rough. And, I decided, you know what, it's time. But I wanted to, as much as I told her these stories, and as much as I told her what I was feeling on my end and what I was hearing from my end, and the guidance that I was getting, I needed her to see it and hear it for herself.
Right.
So I took her on a journey just a few weeks ago to Dwarka to see Lord Krishna. And I took her there. There's this, we go into his palace, and to the right, there's this beautiful balcony that overlooks the whole city. And it's just so amazing. And that's where he always meets me. That's where he always wants to talk with me. So I took her there, and she saw him, and I said, okay, I'm going to step away, and I want you guys to talk. And actually that morning, it was her higher self that came to me. Her higher self woke me up. I felt somebody holding my hand, and her higher self told me, she needs your help. And you need to do something now. And I told her, I can't. Like, I was told to back off. I was told to leave it. But she's saying, no, it's getting to a point where you need to do something. She's reaching a breaking point. You have to do something. You're the only one that can do this. So anyway, I took her to Lord Krishna. They chatted, and I was waiting in sort of, like, I guess, the lobby area. And Hanuman was there, and my higher self was there, and her higher self was there. And her higher self comes to me, and she's like, so, like, anxious, and she's like, so is she talking to him? And I'm like, yeah, she's talking to him. Don't worry, just wait, right? Give her some time. And I waited about 10-15 minutes, and then I told her it's time to do this. And we stepped into her heart chakra, and there we found, in her emotional body, we found an entity. It was a lower dimensional, lower vibrational entity. Actually, we saw a fragmented soul first, and it was this fragmented soul. She looked quite damaged. She looked almost like, it felt like almost like a hostage situation. And she was, she looked quite beaten and distraught. And I first came across her, she was screaming. And my wife connected to it as well. She saw it. She saw her. We spoke to her. We were able to help her transition to the light. And then the next day, I stepped into her solar plexus, and that's when I found this lower dimensional, lower vibrational entity, and he was nasty. He was in the process of rooting himself in. He was in the process of spreading. So he already had connected to her emotions. He already had connected to her thoughts. He had mind manipulation going already. He already had this dark cloud over her heart and roots into her heart and into her throat. And when I went into that emotional body, all I saw was darkness. The four of us went together, me, my higher self, Hanuman, and her higher self, because they wanted to come with me. So I said, of course, Hanuman's always there to help me. He's kind of like my Swiss Army knife. He does everything. And we went there, and Hanuman said, I asked him some questions, asked him why he was there, and he was basically just saying, she's mine. She's all mine. It seemed that it was from a past life connection, and he was somehow obsessed with her soul, and he was very attracted to her soul, and he just wanted her all to himself, and he did not like me. He said, I need to get rid of you. I need to do whatever it takes to get rid of you. I want you gone. And I told him, I was trying to be reasonable, but he was not responding. I asked Hanuman, can you remove this entity? Can you help me remove this entity? And Hanuman said that it was even beyond him. Really? So right before I went in, I did ask Archangel Michael to oversee things, just to keep an eye out. And in that moment, when Hanuman said, there's nothing I can do at this point, all of a sudden this portal opens up, and Archangel Michael comes through with his army, his blue army. And he came at the right moment, because this entity somehow, and I've never seen this before, but this entity started to try and send some dark energy towards us. And Archangel Michael shielded us from it and protected us from it. And he basically, it all happened so fast. He took this weapon that he had, this almost like this whip or rope or something, this lighted rope, and he just threw it at him. He wrapped it around him, caught him, and whoosh, just took him through the portal and took off.
Nice.
It was something that I've never seen before. And I realized how dark this entity was, and how, and to the point where even like Hanuman was always able to help me with everything, but at this point he was like, no, there's nothing I can do. So that was what's been happening the last few weeks. And I even had this father and son come to me a couple of weeks ago, and they said, I saw them in a dream, very vivid dream, and my son, when he wakes up in the morning, he does this like creepy thing where he just opens the door and then the door closes slowly. So until we tell him to come in, and so this door opens, and in the vision, my wife is just like, that's not our son, Nico. And I was like, what? So I was like, okay. So I go downstairs, and there's this man there, and with his son. And I was just like, who are you? And he was like, oh, I was sent to you. And I was like, how did you get into my house? He's like, the door was open. I was like, the door is locked. How could you have gone into my house? So that's when I realized, okay, this is an earthbound, or this is a damaged soul or a lost soul that needs help. So I told him, I can't wrap my head around this right now, because I was a little bit drained from other things that I was doing that week. And I told him, just wait outside. I want you to wait outside by this crystal here. And when I'm ready, I will help you. I will connect, right? So the next day I was feeling quite a bit better. So I connected and I was trying to figure out who they were, where they're from. And the information that I got was that their names were John and Lewis. Actually, they told me John and Lucas is what I heard, and that they were from the UK and that they got into a really bad car accident and they didn't make it, the father and the son. And the son was really young, maybe 2, 3 years old, 4 years old at the most. And he was around my age, in late 30s, early 40s. And really gentle souls, really kind souls. They just needed help. And so I asked him, how did you find me? How did you know to come to me? And he's like, I saw you in the air. So when I went to Fiji, he must have seen me
Right.
suspended. And he goes, it drew me to you. So I knew to come to you. Right. So he found me that way. And I'm sure that others will find me at some point too, over the next few weeks or months. And so I called in, I felt really strong Christ energy when I was working with them. So I called in Christ energy. I called in family and spirit. I had a portal opened into the light, and and I asked him, okay, it's time for you to transition. You're ready. It's time to go. And he said, I can't go until you promise me you do one thing. And I said, okay, what is that? And he's like, I need you to find my wife, and I need you to tell her that we're okay. Because it turned out that the father and the son ended up in different parts of the hospital, or maybe different hospitals altogether. Oh. Given that he was such a young child and he was older. And he said that after they both passed, his goal was to just find a son.
Right.
He needed to find a son. And so he just ignored everything else. So even if there was a portal open for him to go into the light and transition, he didn't want to. He needed to find a son, right. Understandably. So he found a son, and he had been trying to connect with his wife. He had been trying to find a way to show her that he found him, they're together, they're safe. But he wasn't able to do it for all these months. So he made me promise that I try and find her, and that I try and send her at least an email or a message just saying that they're okay, that they've moved on, that they've gone into the light, they're with family and spirit, and they're safe. So when I went onto the internet and I started to research and investigate, I found them. Their names were John and Lewis, and they got into an car accident in Mansfield, UK, back in January 2022. And they had been trying to connect with the wife since then. And it came to a point where he's like, okay, we gotta move on, right? But he didn't know how. So that's when they found their way to me. So the timing of it was just impeccable.
No coincidence in that.
No, definitely not. So I did
stories.
Yeah. So I did find the wife. Her name's Caroline. And I found a GoFundMe page that was for John and Lewis to set up for the funeral costs.
Oh.
And it wasn't directly done by the wife. It was done by this, I guess, a friend or a close family member. So I did send an email through that email that was there. That was last week, but I haven't heard back. I did post something on my Instagram page as well, just a picture of John and Lewis, just explaining the situation and saying, can you guys please pass this on, and maybe it will reach Caroline. But whether it reached her or not, I don't know.
All you can do is try.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I did what I could do on my end, and
Yep.
And even if it does reach her, it's a lot to take, right? It's a lot to.
We don't know how people are going to respond to that. We don't know what their belief systems are and what they're ready to hear and not ready to hear, but we do try to make the attempt. There are a lot of skeptical people out there, but you do what you think is right.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's what kind of takes me to this point where I am right now. And I also did start to put myself out there. I was finally felt like I was able to remove the blocks that I had within myself, to get out there. So I'm starting to post stories on my Instagram page about myself and about who I am and the abilities. And since then, I have had a couple of family members approach me and ask me for help, and family members that are also experiencing similar mental health issues. Um, there was also my cousin who needed help. He's been going through quite a bit. He's in a really bad spot physically. There's so many health issues going on,
Mm.
and I had always known that there was something really bad with him. But I mean, you can't do anything without permission. So I'm not going to go in there and start manipulating energy and removing things without him knowing that it's happening, because I've made that mistake before and I'm not going, and I learned from it. So um, he finally did give me permission towards the beginning of September, because the story started to come out within the family of who I am and what I'm doing.
Good.
And so he approached me, and so when I went in, he had something rooted into his root chakra, and it was like this thing with wings, and it was just all of the veins, black veins coming out of the wings. It was just completely rooted into his body, and I was able to feel it wrapping down his legs, and I was able to feel the pain in his legs that he has, because he's not able to walk very well. So I could feel it more so in his right leg than his left leg, but I
Wow.
can also see it rooting even deeper into his left leg. So I told him, there's going to come a point where if nothing's done, then your left leg's going to be just as bad as your right. And it's going to go, and I see it going up your spine and going up through all your chakras. And whatever it was needed to be removed. And it was nasty. It was one of the nastiest things I've ever seen.
Mm.
And when I connected to Lord Krishna, when I was speaking about it with one of my other guides and teachers, they were saying that it's a demon. It's a demon. It's a very old demon. And it was a demon that was connected to Mother Earth's energy. And it found your cousin because he was in a very low state.
Mhm.
And its job is to project its wrath onto everybody that is nearby. And people in the house, weird things were happening. People were getting weird accidents were happening. When you go into the house, there's this, like, you can see in the walls, like, just the darkness and the buildup of energy,
Mm.
and it was not a good situation. So I was able to remove this entity or this demon from his root. And as soon as I removed it, for the past year, he's been going to MRIs, he's been taking CT scans, he's been doing blood tests, he's been doing everything, and everything showing as normal, everything from a medical standpoint. They couldn't figure out what it was. But I told him, I said, he has this hold on your root chakra, like everything at the bottom of your spine is just kind of bundled up, and it's just all wrapped around and all tangled up and everything. But his CT scan or MRI showed that it showed this ball of veins that were sort of wrapped around each other, and they didn't know why it was there, or what it was there for,
Mhm.
and what it was causing. So as soon as I removed this demon from his root, the next day, actually, a couple days later, he had another MRI, and all of a sudden, all these things start to show that he had something wrong with his spleen. He had something wrong with his kidney. He had something wrong with the somewhere at the bottom of his spine, and like all of a sudden, all these issues that should have shown up in the reports throughout the year wasn't, and then all of a sudden, a few days after removing this entity, all of these issues started to show up. So now he's starting to see specialists, and they're going through the process of trying to figure it out. And I gave him some guidance on, doing these white light meditations and opening up his chakras and just kind of taking salt baths and keep clearing it out, shielding, to protect himself from it coming back. And I know that there's other entities with him. And I know that there's roots that I need to remove, but all of these health issues that arise, it kind of scared him. There's definitely fear there. And because of what I did, all of this all of a sudden popped up. So I'm sure that there's fear there. Like, okay, what if he's going to do more, and then more pops up and more pops up and more pops up.
Got to go through it. Got to see.
Yeah, but he's not. But I've lost that permission. So I've given him, and I know in my heart that I'll be able to finish what I started, but not until he's ready.
Yeah.
But I hope it's not too late.
Well, it sounds like you've created enough experience to sort of really be someone that would be an asset for people that are looking for some help. And it's been a complete honor of mine to be able to be part of your journey, to get you to understand your work, what you came here to do, getting you through the challenges you went through. And I am so excited for you and the work that you're going to be doing in the future. I know your guides really want you to start reaching out to people and helping people regarding their particular circumstances. If people do feel like they really would like to speak with you, how can they reach out to you?
I do have an Instagram page right now. It's spiritual.road_888. So again, that's spiritual.road_888. Or you can even connect with me through my personal Instagram, just my name, Rikesh Lallu. Those are the two ways that you can connect with me right now. And then I hope to, I'm researching on getting a web page up, where I can, tell a little bit about my story and start offering services. I did have somebody message me and they say, "Oh, how much do you charge for what you do?" And I was like, I have no idea.
That will come in time. You'll figure that out.
Yeah, so it's still things that I'm trying to figure out, because I'm only, a month and a bit into putting myself out there.
Right.
But I'm trying to share some knowledge and wisdom, and I'm trying to share things about, I just want to reach out to other people that are experiencing mental health, especially because I know what it feels like, and I know what it can do to you. And I just want people to know that it's our soul. It's our soul trying to use our mind and body, trying to tell us a story, trying to tell us, what you're doing right now, the way you're living your life is not what you're meant to do.
Right.
You need to, and it's like, like, I know it's a common story, but it's that peeling of the onion, right? Just peeling the layers back. It's going to keep peeling you back until you're not who you are anymore.
Wow.
And you don't know who you are anymore, but you have to lose yourself in order to find yourself. So, and you have to go through all that darkness. You have to go right through that tunnel in order to get to the light, and that we all have within us.
Right.
And I don't want people to make the same mistakes I made, when, having those anxiety attacks, feeling those negative emotions, and hearing those negative thoughts in your mind. I would suppress everything. I suppressed it for years. I suppressed it for almost 20 years, maybe even longer.
Wow.
And it all builds up. There's only so much that the body can hold in, because all these traumas, all these wounds, they're stored in our body. They're stored in our chakras. They don't go anywhere until we find them and we remove them from us.
Right.
And then eventually your body will start telling you, through illnesses, through sicknesses, through pain, through suffering, through mental health, it will find a way to tell you that something's not right. And change is hard, but and getting uncomfortable in all of this is hard, but it's the only way to heal in so many ways, and the medication, even until I got off of the medication, I didn't feel better until I got off the medication, because the medication itself was also suppressing all my emotions. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't process anything. If I can't feel my emotions, how am I supposed to process them?
Right.
And once I got off the medication, I weaned off of it, and against my doctor's advice, but but I had to do it. I knew deep down inside I had to do it, and I'm not recommending that for everybody.
Right.
But all I'm saying is that you have to realize that there's something bigger happening, that the universe is, and your soul is, and that connection is trying to reach out to you, is trying to tell you a story. And instead of ignoring that story, instead of suppressing that story, next time you have that anxiety attack, next time you feel that negative emotion, feel it. Separate yourself, feel it, because it's trying to tell us something. Close your eyes, breathe into it, and try and drop down into your heart space, and try and live through the heart, try and live through your compassion and your empathy, and try and find what it's trying to tell you. Try and listen to your inner voice, because in this world, we're taught to go to school, and we're taught to get an education, and we're taught to get a good job, and build a family, buy a house, and live that American dream. But that's all living through the mind. It's all stuff that's training the mind, and the mind has its own agendas, and so does the ego. And if we're living through our mind and our ego, yes, you can be successful in this life. Definitely, you can make lots of money, you can have that big house, you can have all your material possessions. But at the end of the day, you're still going to feel this emptiness deep down inside. That emptiness is always going to be there. And I was there too. I thought that emptiness would be filled by buying a new car. So I bought a new car. And I felt good for a couple of months.
Sure.
And then the emptiness came back.
Yep.
And that emptiness is you trying to get to your heart space, and you trying to find your way to your heart, and to listen to that inner voice.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that the intelligence of the heart is way smarter than the intelligence of the mind. The mind may be one of the most powerful organs and instruments ever created in the universe, and it's very powerful, but you have to bypass that power in order to get to the intelligence of the heart. But once you get there, the mind is only a third dimensional space. It can only operate in the third dimension. It can only operate through your senses. Whereas the heart, it's infinite. You can astral project, you can travel to different dimensions, you can go to places where time and space doesn't exist. And you can connect to people that you never thought that you would have been able to connect to. The world is so much bigger, and the universe is so much bigger than where our minds want to operate. And I've learned that throughout all of this, that the mind and the ego, it has this, every single time you hear that voice from your heart space, every single time you try and follow that voice and work with that voice, your mind and your ego will trigger anxiety. Your mind and ego will trigger mental health or pain and suffering of some sort in your body, because it doesn't want you to. It has its own agenda. It wants to live in this world. It wants to make lots of money. It wants to do whatever it is that it wants to do. And if we're trapped in that matrix, or we're trapped in that space of the mind, then we're never going to be able to connect to the truth, to connect to our truth. And all of us have a different perspective. All of us will have a different story. All of us will have a different way of getting to that space and connecting to it. Maybe some of us will get to there, like me, through anxiety and mental health and depression. Some of us will get there through a huge loss in their life. Some of us will get there through like just, not necessarily meditation, but going for walks and connecting to nature and doing those types of things. Everybody will have a different path, but we have to find that path and we have to connect to it, because if we don't, then we're going to have to do this all over again in the next life.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much for your wise words, Rikesh. I know there's so many people that are going to really need to hear what you said today, and to share all your experiences and your knowledge and your faith, your love, your compassion. And I'm, like I said, so honored to be part of your journey. And so thank you so much for being
Thank you,
on the
Amy,
show
for
today.
having me. Yeah, I'm so honored and humbled to be here. And I thank you, and I'm grateful for you as well, and the work that you're doing, and all the others that have helped me throughout this journey. And I'm looking forward to, I don't know where it's taking me, but I know that
Just keep walking.
I'm going to keep going. Yeah, I'm not going to stop.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for watching. And please reach out to Rikesh. I'm going to list his Instagram sites here, so you'll be able to connect to him. Please feel free to leave a comment for him. It's always nice to have a little bit of feedback. And we shall see you next time.
All right. See you later, Amy. Take care.